So have you put together, we've been mandated, I'll give you a peek behind the curtain, everybody, to have our top 40 in by today for some reason. And it has to be in by tonight. That's it. It's multiple emails on that front. And so we will get those top 40s picks in. I think it's going to be the weirdest top 40 lists we've ever done. It's just going to be bizarre.
I don't disagree.
All over the map.
This one is tough because I forgot a couple of players in my first pass. I did it a couple of days ago just to see if I could name 40 quickly and I would omit people or not. And I did omit some people as I thought. And so I get to 43 or 44, and I'm really mad about 37 to 44 because I want some kids to be included on the list. And frankly, I want credit for being high on some kids that are in the middle part of the list that are trending up. But you can't force it. You just can't force it. So I do have my first real draft. I'm probably just going to send this. And I know we do have an editorial committee comprised of a couple of gentlemen who's just going to look over and say, hey, idiot, you forgot about starting linebacker number 2. Or, hey, idiot, you forgot about the right guard. Like, okay, fair. I don't think I missed anybody now, but it's the way I constructed the top 5 was more about if this guy gets hurt, we're screwed, than it was this guy's going to be the highest draft pick.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it that way too. So let me ask you, because every year the number 1 guy on this list is the quarterback. Do you think it's universal agrees that it's DJU at number 1 this year? Because I got to tell you, I'm not so sure he is.
I don't know that it's going to be universally agreed upon. I think you can make a very good case for DJU being number 1 because it's several other positions. You do have other options. And while Brock Glenn is a good option and a good player, I don't think your goals, if you were to do future odds and be honest with yourself on ACC championship, 10 plus wins, making the football playoff, those drop dramatically if DJU is not your quarterback.
Yeah, how dramatically is probably the debate. I would agree with the way you phrased that or coined that. You'd say dramatically dropped. Okay, that's fair. I don't think it's as dramatic as people think.
Compared to Jordan versus Tate, it's not as dramatic. Yeah, that's fair.
Not even close, right? Not even close. Like if we had to have gone from Jordan to Tate, you've fallen off a cliff. I think if you go from DJU to Brock Glenn, you're like, game and a half more in the way of losses.
Yeah.
Game and a half, maybe.
But definitely your ACC aspirations take a significant hit, more so than I would argue if, say, Patrick Payton went down. You got options. And I feel better about those options if Patrick Payton was not available for a stretch. Not rooting for any of this to happen. It's just when you're trying to rank your system out, that to me is maybe a dividing line. Now, there are some other players that if they get dinged up, you go, ooh, that's a problem.
Well, yes. Yeah, this is why it's a fun discussion, because I'll say this. Yes, if your starting defensive ends are going to be Marvin Jones Jr. and Patrick Payton Jr., your backup is Lola Hea, right? And then it's Byron Turner on the other side. You're not devastated, I suppose, although I do think there's a significant drop-off from Patrick Payton to Byron Turner.
Yes, I would, but that would be 1 to 4, right? At that point, 1 to 4.
Yeah, so you just think they'd move Lola? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's why. And so now again, it's going to hurt. It's just, does it hurt more than DJU to Brock? That's the question.
What's fun to do when you put these lists together is I try to go down the starting 11 on both sides of the ball. So like we just named the defensive ends that are starting, and then we start looking at, the interior, Daryl Jackson and Josh Farmer, and the guys behind them, Grady Kelly and Sampson and guys like that. And then you start doing the linebackers, and you're asking about, Lundy and Nicholson and Murphy and Graham, and who am I forgetting about?
Riley.
Riley. Yeah. So yeah, you start doing that, and then Azaria Thomas, at corner, and Fintrell Cypress at corner, and then from there, where are you looking at? Then you start going, who are their backups? Who do we think would start behind those guys? Quindarius Jones, probably, right?
I have him. I think he made the cut. He had a good spring, but Shaheem's got to be up there as well. I know you're talking corners, not safety, but Shaheem has to be pretty high in this discussion.
He does, and then that asks you the question, okay, then from there, how high do you put Earl Little Jr., right? That's when you're starting to project what he's going to do. Where do you put I don't know, Hussey or Kirkland or guys like that. It gets tough to rank guys like that at those positions. But it's kind of fun to do that. Like, just go, okay, let's go the 2 deep on defense, and I'm going to do the 2 deep on offense, and then just start placing them, right? I mean, that's kind of the exercise, I think.
Yeah, and this has a real chance this December or January when we do the recap. What did you get wrong? This to be the most spicy of all of the ones that we've done, because there are so many candidates, and guys are allowed to develop over the summer. They're allowed to have a good fall camp and come from off of the list, because this is the part about having a higher quantity of capable players. We could easily have some dudes that do not make our consensus top 40 who end up being impact players for Florida State by the end of the year.
That's correct. That's why I said I think it's going to be a very interesting top 40 list. There'll be plenty of debate. It'll get spicy because I think there are guys that might be 37th on one of our staff members' lists that are 13th on somebody else's. I mean, like that more this year than ever before. We always have some discrepancy. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I would challenge anybody to do this top 40 list and not get something glaringly wrong. You're going to. You just have to understand, entering into the conversation, you're listing 40 effing guys. Somebody's going to fall off a cliff either due to a nagging injury, they don't play well, they get surpassed on the depth chart. You were banking on them to take a step forward in the offseason and get stronger, and maybe as they walked off that field in spring, you would have put them at 33rd, but you think they're going to get better when fall starts and get stronger, and so you put them at 20, and then they don't even play. Somebody beats them out in fall camp. You're like, oh, guess that went the other way.
Oh, and we all have those stories at the end of the year. That I actually really like the exercise because it helps you learn. You look back on what you thought in the moment and say, the end of spring camp or in the off season, and you say, where did I go wrong with this player? And for example, for me last year, I had Byers in the top 5 or top 6 because I thought
he was going to be good, and he turned out not to be.
I thought he was going to be a guard that was of importance on the level of Dylan Gibbons because of his athleticism. And boy, was that dead wrong. But then you get stuff right. Like I was ahead of the game on Josh Farmer, so because I thought even with Fabo and Fisk, I thought that Farmer was going to be extremely important. But every year you play that game and you try to revise those things so that you have fewer outliers. But man, when the roster is this talented, doesn't mean there's a whole bunch of A+, but when there's a lot of B+, and A- players,
it's convoluted. Yeah.
There's a lot of variance. It makes it fun.